Hello, Canada. I got to tell you this, everybody. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And unfortunately, your fear is also getting more and more intense. I'd like all of you in Canada to ask yourself this question. This simple question. Why am I so afraid of the CRA? Here's some questions to ask yourself. Do I know anybody who's been shot by the CRA? Do I know anybody who has been arrested by the CRA? Do I know anybody personally who's been dragged into court by the CRA? Do I know of anybody who's had their dog or cat or child kidnapped by the CRA? Do I know anybody who the Canada Revenue Agency showed up at their front door with a battering ram, kicked down the door and walked in? Do I know of any of these situations at all? Yeah, of course the answer is no. None of you do. But all of you know about that guy, that time, at that place you heard about over there. You know, the guy with the nose, you heard about him. And you heard that the CRA, froze his bank account. And I've told you before, it's not the CRA that does that. It's the banks that do that. Why? Is because the CRA is a client of most of the banks. It's all about money, everybody. And some of you out there say, well, the CRA took my house. No, they don't do that either. They'll put writs and liens on it, but they won't take your house. The CRA is not the juggernauts that you think that they are. They're just 60,000, my mistake, people with exceptionally low intelligence quotients and no respect for the sanctity of life. That's right. They do not want any of you to have dignity. And the big problem is you fear people with excessively low intelligence quotients who are just reading off of a computer screen. The same way that collection agents do, the same way that people who work for the city do, the same way that any government employee does. They all just read a script. They're really, really stupid people. And the big issue for all of you out there is that all of you give them infinite power over yourselves by fearing them, by not even reading what the laws really are. What is the law that says the CRA can take something from you? You don't know because you haven't read it. You haven't read the Income Tax Act, the Excise Tax Act, the GST Act, the CRA Act. You don't know the difference between an act and a law. You don't know who the Income Tax Act pertains to. You don't know any of this stuff. And none of you know how to file criminal charges against the CRA. And none of you know how to file criminal charges against cops who assault you. None of you know anything about the government. That's why you're afraid, is that none of you have done any research whatsoever to strengthen your own position, ergo your own mind into being freer. My mind is completely free and clear because I know these laws. I know the statutes, I know the acts, and I know the difference between each and every one of them. You need to do the same thing. Fear is unbecoming. There's nothing worse than a guy my age, I'll be 54 next month, listening to a guy my age crying about the fact that some loser named Unca Bunka or Fufu made a phone call to him from the CRA. I hear this stuff all the time. We need some real men back in the country. And we need real men who remember that our entire nation, the entire continent, was built upon conflict. Identifying problems and solving them, tackling them. Immediately, the problem comes up, you solve the problem. But everybody wants to hide. You ignore letters and you ignore phone calls, and then you wonder why they get aggressive. Instead of you yourself going on the attack and attacking the CRA with legal letters, with lawsuits, with criminal charges, and with threats of your own. We all have the right to do the exact same thing the CRA is doing. The CRA has no special right to do anything that they do. They have the same rights that you and I have. You and I can tell them to give us money. They don't have to, but we can tell them that. They tell you to give them money, and you do. Why? I bet you don't even know.